The morning sunlight touched Maya Carter's little house like a gentle whisper, falling across a table filled with crayons, storybooks, and 2 half-finished pancakes. Her twin daughters were laughing, high musical laughter that always filled the quiet corners of her heart. For years, Maya had built her life around them, learning to find joy where the past had left scars. But that peaceful rhythm shattered when a crisp knock echoed through the door. She froze, her heart stumbling against her ribs. When she opened it, a man in a dark suit stood silently, holding out a silver envelope sealed with gold. "For Miss Carter," he said, and left without another word. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The elegant script gleamed under the light. "Adrian Blake and Isabella Moore request the honor of your presence at their wedding." For a second, she couldn't breathe. Adrian, the man who had once called her his forever. The man who had disappeared the moment her world needed him most. She had not heard his name in 8 years. She stared at the invitation until her vision blurred. He wanted her to watch him marry someone else? After everything? Her twins, Chloe and Aria, came running, asking about the envelope. Maya hid her pain behind a forced smile, but deep inside, a storm was forming, a storm of memory, regret, and strength she never knew she still had. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. The invitation lay on her nightstand, glowing faintly under the streetlight that slipped through the curtain. Every word seemed to whisper his name, Adrian Blake, over and over until it hurt to breathe. She had spent years convincing herself she was free from his memory, that time had healed what he broke. But now the pain felt new again, fresh, sharp, and alive. She turned her face toward the ceiling, remembering the day everything fell apart. Adrian wasn't always cold. Once he was the man who drove for hours just to see her smile, who promised her the stars beneath a rainy sky. But promises meant nothing when his mother found out about Maya. "A woman from the wrong side of the city," she had said, words laced with disdain. Maya still remembered being escorted out of the Blake mansion, tears in her eyes, his mother's voice echoing behind her. "Leave and never come back." Adrian never defended her. He never came after her. The silence that followed was louder than any goodbye, but the twins changed everything. When she looked at them, she saw the parts of him he'd left behind. The eyes, the smile, the dimple that appeared when they laughed. Now he wanted her to see his perfect life, his perfect bride. Maya wiped her tears, her jaw tightening with quiet fire. "He wants me to see what I lost," she whispered. "But he will see what he left behind." The next morning, Maya woke up with a strange calmness that felt like the silence before a storm. The twins were still asleep, their small faces peaceful and full of dreams. For a moment she hesitated, wondering if she was strong enough to face the past. But then she saw the invitation lying on the table, and something inside her shifted. She realized this wasn't just about a wedding. It was about closure, about reclaiming the voice that had been stolen from her. She dressed quietly, her thoughts moving faster than her heartbeat. She had built her world from nothing, working as an art teacher in a small school, painting smiles on children's faces, while hiding her own pain behind them. Every brushstroke, every lesson, had been a piece of her healing. But even art couldn't erase the memory of that night, when Adrian's silence spoke louder than his love ever did. She had stood in the rain, carrying the weight of a secret he never cared to hear. Now, years later, She was no longer the woman who begged to be seen. She was the woman who had survived. As she packed a suitcase, she told herself it was only a trip. A little vacation, she smiled when her daughters asked. But her heart whispered the truth. It was time to face him, not as the broken girl he left behind, but as the mother of the daughters he never met. The drive to the city felt endless, the highway stretching like a ribbon between two lives, one she had survived and one waiting to test her again. The twins sat in the back seat singing along to their favorite song, their laughter filling the car like sunlight. Maya glanced at them through the mirror and smiled. They had no idea that the man they were about to see was more than a ghost from her past. He was the man who unknowingly shared their blood. Each mile brought back flashes of memories she had buried deep. Adrian's voice, his promises, the night sky above the old lake where they once dreamed of a future together. Now that same man had turned their love into a public spectacle. His wedding splashed across every social feed as the event of the year. When she finally reached the Blake estate, it stood like a palace from another world, tall, guarded, and glittering with cold beauty. The gates opened slowly as her car approached, as if the past itself was allowing her in. The moment she stepped out, eyes followed her. The guests whispered, their curiosity sharp and cruel. Maya's breath hitched, but she straightened her shoulders. She had promised herself she would not cry. Not tonight. Inside, crystal chandeliers glimmered above the guests, and golden laughter filled the hall. And there he was, Adrian Blake, standing near the altar, confident and untouchable. Until his eyes met hers, the color drained from his face. Because standing beside her were two little girls with his smile. For a moment, time itself seemed to stop. The sound of music faded, and every whisper vanished into silence. Adrian's eyes widened as he stared at the two little girls holding Maya's hands. His fingers trembled around the glass he was holding, and it slipped from his grasp, shattering against the marble floor. Gasps rippled through the room as crystal pieces scattered like tiny shards of truth. Maya didn't flinch. She stood tall, calm, and composed, the quiet storm that had come to reclaim her dignity. Adrian's fiancée Isabella turned pale, confusion and fear written all over her face. Who are they?" she asked in a trembling voice. Adrian couldn't answer. His gaze was locked on the twins, the same shade of brown eyes, the same smile he saw in his own reflection every morning. Maya walked closer, her heels echoing against the polished floor. "Congratulations, Adrian," she said softly, her voice steady but cutting like ice. "I received your invitation. I thought you might want to meet the part of your past you left behind." Gasps filled the hall again. Adrian took a step forward, but his words faltered. "Maya, this isn't how—" She stopped him with a look that carried years of silent pain. 8 years ago you chose silence. Now look at what your silence created." The twins clung to her hands, their innocent faces unaware of the storm they had just walked into. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The ballroom was frozen in disbelief. Cameras had stopped flashing, and every eye in the grand hall was fixed on Maya and her daughters. The weight of truth hung heavy in the air, thicker than any perfume or music that once filled the room. Adrian's mother, Mrs. Blake, stood near the staircase, her lips trembling, her proud composure slipping for the first time. She had built her empire on control, but no one could control the truth that now stood in front of them, living, breathing, smiling. Adrian moved closer, his voice low and trembling. Maya, are they mine? The words cracked like glass between them. Maya's eyes softened, but her voice remained strong. You already know the answer, Adrian. You just never wanted to ask. Her twins looked up, confused, sensing the storm around them. One of them whispered, Mom, is this man our dad? The question broke something inside him. His world, the wealth, the fame, the power, suddenly felt meaningless. He knelt before the girls, tears forming for the first time in years. I didn't know, he whispered, guilt dripping from every word. I swear I didn't know. Maya looked at him quietly. You didn't want to. As she turned to leave, the room erupted in murmurs. But Maya didn't care. She had walked in with pain and walked out with pride. That night, the headlines didn't celebrate a wedding. They told the story of a woman who showed the world that true strength comes from walking away with dignity, not staying to be seen.